A 17-year-old boy heading home after a late-night date vanished from a quiet suburban street in Ohio at 11:47 p.m. in 2019. Police said he must have run away. Teenagers did that all the time. But there was no argument, no packed bag, no goodbye message. His phone went dead within minutes. For 2 years, nothing surfaced. Then, in a routine audit of archived city footage, an investigator reopened a forgotten taxi dashcam file. What it captured at 11:52 p.m., 5 minutes after the boy disappeared, showed the back seat door closing from the inside. The night didn't feel dangerous. It felt soft, almost forgettable, the kind of ordinary moment people replay later only because it was the last time everything was still intact. 17-year-old Ethan Mercer stood under the yellow spill of a streetlight, hands shoved into the pockets of his hoodie, smiling in that uncertain way boys do when they're trying to act older than they feel. Across from him, Lily laughed quietly, pulling her jacket tighter against the late autumn air. "You'll text me when you get home?" she asked. "Yeah, promise," Ethan said. "It's like 3 minutes." They both knew it wasn't really 3 minutes. It was closer to 10, maybe 12, depending on how fast he walked and whether he cut through the side street instead of the main road. But it felt close enough to pretend the night hadn't ended yet. Lily watched him turn away, his sneakers scuffing lightly against the pavement. She waited until he reached the corner before heading inside. She would later tell police that she remembered thinking how quiet it was. No cars, no voices, just the hum of distant traffic and the faint buzz of the streetlight overhead. Ethan didn't notice the silence. He was focused on his phone. Ethan. "Had fun tonight." Lily. "Me too." Ethan. "Almost home." At 11:47 p.m., that message delivered. At 11:48 it was read. At 11:49, nothing else came through. Ethan's house sat at the edge of the neighborhood, a modest 2-story with a porch light that his mother always left on when he was out late. Inside, his parents were half awake, half watching television, listening for the familiar sound of the front door opening. "He'll be home any minute," his mom said, glancing at her phone. "He always texts." His father nodded. "Good kid. Too responsible, if you ask me." They didn't know that just a block away, Ethan had slowed his pace. Later reconstructions would show his phone's GPS dot drifting down Oak Ridge Lane, then hesitating. Not stopping completely, just lingering. As if he'd paused to think, or listen. Ethan looked up from his screen. The street ahead of him was empty, but something felt off, not fear, not yet, more like confusion. A car idled near the curb, its engine low and steady, headlights dimmed. It wasn't unusual enough to panic. Taxis sometimes cut through the neighborhood at night, avoiding traffic. Still, he hesitated. "Get home," he muttered to himself, taking a few steps forward. The car didn't move. At 11:50 p.m., Ethan's phone sent its last location update, 1 block from home. Inside the Mercer house, minutes began to stretch. "Shiidan wushawufen. Shardan lingifen." His mom sent a text. "You home?" No reply. By 12:07 a.m., worry crept in, not sharp yet, but insistent. His father stepped onto the porch, scanning the street. The light hummed. The road was empty. "He probably stopped to talk to someone," he said, more to himself than anyone else. But deep down, both of them knew Ethan didn't stop to talk to people at midnight. At 12:14 a.m., his mother tried calling. Straight to voicemail. By the time panic fully set in, the night had already swallowed whatever happened on Oak Ridge Lane. No screams, no witnesses, no signs of a struggle. Just an unfinished walk home, and a phone that went silent in the span of minutes. When police would later ask Lily to describe the last time she saw Ethan, she'd always pause before answering. "He smiled," she'd say, "like nothing bad could happen." And that was the part no one could explain. Because somewhere between a promise to text and a porch light waiting in the dark, Ethan Mercer didn't just miss his curfew. He vanished. By morning, the absence had weight. Ethan's bedroom door stood open. His bed still neatly made. The hoodie he'd worn the night before gone from its hook. His mother stood frozen in the doorway, eyes scanning the room as if something might suddenly explain itself if she stared long enough. "He wouldn't do this," she said, her voice thin. "He wouldn't just leave." Police arrived just after sunrise. 2 officers, calm and polite, asking the same early questions families always hate answering. Had Ethan ever talked about running away? Any recent fights? Any trouble at school? No, his father said, again and again. No, no, no. They walked the route Ethan would have taken home. Oak Ridge Lane looked even shorter in daylight, tree-lined, tidy, familiar. A place where people waved at each other, where kids rode bikes without helmets. It didn't look like somewhere a boy could disappear. A patrol officer pointed to the curb near the corner. This is where his phone last pinged? Yes, the detective replied, checking notes. Right here. They searched anyway. Lawns, alleys, trash bins, a drainage ditch behind a row of houses. Nothing. No scuffed dirt, no dropped phone, no broken branch or torn fabric. By noon, a K9 unit arrived. Ethan's mother clutched one of his sweatshirts to her chest as the handler let the dog sniff it, then release. The animal pulled forward confidently, nose low, tail stiff. It followed the sidewalk, crossed the street, then stopped, right at the curb. The dog circled once, twice, then sat. That's it, the handler said quietly. That's where the scent ends. Ended. As if Ethan had simply evaporated. Neighbors gathered in small clusters, whispering theories. Someone mentioned seeing a car idling late that night. Another said they heard a door slam around midnight, but assumed it was nothing. A detective scribbled notes but didn't look convinced. By late afternoon, the tone shifted. Given his age, one officer explained gently, it's possible Ethan left voluntarily. Teenagers sometimes do that after emotional events. First relationships can be intense. His mother's head snapped up. He went on a date. To get ice cream. The officer didn't argue. He didn't need to. The phrase, voluntary runaway, was already being typed into the system. Flyers went up anyway. Schools were notified. Friends were questioned. One of Ethan's closest friends, Marcus, sat in an interrogation room, swinging his leg nervously. He wouldn't just disappear, Marcus said. He freaked out if his mom texted twice in a row. He hated worrying her. Another friend mentioned something odd. There was this taxi, she said slowly. I didn't see it, but my cousin lives on Oak Ridge. She said there was a car sitting there for a while, engine running. A taxi? The detective asked. Yeah, like one of those older sedans, light on top. The lead was logged, briefly followed, then quietly dismissed. No license plate, no confirmed driver, no pickup request. By the second day, search parties formed. Volunteers combed nearby woods and construction sites. Helicopters circled overhead, their blades chopping through the air as Ethan's mother watched from the driveway, hoping against reason that someone would wave from below. Nothing. On the third night, Ethan's phone officially died. No final message. No missed calls returned, just silence. At the police station, the case file thickened with paperwork, but not answers. A supervisor glanced through it, then sighed. 17. No signs of forced abduction, no body, no evidence. We can't rule out that he left on his own. But he didn't take anything, a junior detective protested. No money, no clothes, no charger. Still, the supervisor said, closing the folder, we have to follow procedure. Procedure meant time. Time meant cold trails. By the end of the week, the words active investigation quietly disappeared from internal briefings. Media interest faded. Tips slowed to a trickle, mostly false sightings that led nowhere. But back on Oak Ridge Lane, one detail refused to sit still. A neighbor, elderly and sharp-eyed, stopped an officer during a routine follow-up. I didn't say it before because I wasn't sure, she admitted. But that car? I heard the back door close. The officer paused. When? She frowned. After midnight. Later than you said he went missing. Later. If she was right, it meant Ethan hadn't vanished at 11:47. It meant he was still there. And someone else was too. The first week after Ethan vanished, Oak Ridge Lane looked like a command center. Volunteer trucks lined the curbs. Folding tables appeared on lawns, stacked with bottled water, maps, and handwritten sign-in sheets. People who barely knew the Mercers hugged them like family, promising they wouldn't stop looking not until Ethan came home. By the second week, those promises began to thin. Detectives expanded the search radius, pushing into nearby wooded areas and half-developed lots on the edge of town. Searchers moved slowly, eyes trained on the ground, every scrap of fabric or disturbed dirt sending a jolt of false hope through the group. "Over here," someone would shout. And then nothing. Just trash. Just leaves. Just another dead end. Ethan's mother walked with them every day, even when her legs shook and her voice went hoarse from calling his name. At night, she sat at the kitchen table refreshing her phone, rereading his last message until the words blurred together. Almost home. His father tried to be practical. He called hospitals, checked shelters, drove routes that made no sense, following instincts he didn't trust but couldn't ignore. "I keep thinking I'll see him walking," he admitted to a detective one evening, "like this is all some mistake." The detective didn't answer. He'd stopped offering reassurance days ago. Inside the department, the case began to stall. Phone records revealed nothing beyond that final GPS pause. Social media showed no secret plans, no cryptic posts, no goodbyes hidden between memes and homework complaints. Bank records were empty. No purchases, no withdrawals. Ethan had vanished without leaving even a digital shadow. The taxi lead resurfaced briefly during a case review. "Any updates on that idling vehicle?" a junior detective asked. The response was curt. No official dispatch, no plate, no footage from nearby traffic cams. Probably unrelated. "But the K9 lost the scent at the curb," the detective pushed. "That suggests a vehicle." "It suggests possibilities," his supervisor replied. "Not evidence." The line was crossed quietly, but decisively, from possible abduction to unconfirmed circumstances. By the third week, media vans disappeared. Headlines shrank from front page to side column, then vanished altogether. At school, Ethan's locker stayed sealed, a strip of police tape peeling at the edges. His friends avoided the hallway. Teachers hesitated before saying his name. Marcus stopped showing up to class entirely. "He keeps thinking he'll hear from him," Marcus's mom told the school counselor. "Like Ethan's just busy." At home, the Mercers began to fracture in small, dangerous ways. His mother replayed the night endlessly, questioning every decision. "Why didn't I pick him up? Why did I trust the street?" His father threw himself into work, staying late to avoid the silence waiting at home. They argued over nothing, over everything. One night, after another fruitless search, his mother broke down in the living room. "They've already given up," she sobbed. "I can see it in their eyes." Her father's voice cracked. "Then we don't." But even as he said it, doubt crept in. By day 45, the official search scaled back. Volunteers were thanked and released. Detectives reassigned. The case file was moved, not closed, but shifted, inactive, pending new information. The words felt like a betrayal. Then, something strange happened. A junior investigator, cleaning up loose ends, requested archived city traffic footage near Oak Ridge Lane. Most cameras had gaps, maintenance issues, corrupted files. One system, belonging to the local transportation authority, showed an error. Footage missing, not overwritten, flagged as corrupted. The timestamp range covered a narrow window, 11:45 p.m. to 12:15 a.m. The request went nowhere. The system was old, the footage unreadable, not worth the resources. Still, the investigator made a note. 2 years later, when a routine audit would resurface that same corrupted file, the note would matter more than anyone realized. Because whatever happened to Ethan Mercer didn't end the night he disappeared. It was recorded, waiting, unseen. 2 years passed, but for Detective Aaron Hale, time didn't move forward, it circled. The Ethan Mercer case sat in a slim gray folder on the bottom shelf of his office cabinet, wedged between closed cases and forgotten names. Officially, it was inactive. Unofficially, it was the one file Hale never stopped opening. He hadn't been the lead investigator back then. Just a junior detective fresh out of patrol, assigned to chase loose ends no one else wanted. And maybe that was why the case stuck to him. He hadn't learned yet when to let go. Late at night, when the precinct quieted and the hum of fluorescent lights replaced conversation, Hale would pull the folder out and spread its contents across his desk. Photos of Oak Ridge Lane, phone records, witness statements that contradicted each other by minutes. And always the curb. The place where the K9 sat down. People don't disappear into air, Hale muttered, rubbing his eyes. They go somewhere. He replayed interviews in his head. Ethan's mother, gripping a mug she never drank from. Marcus, pale and shaking, insisting his friend wouldn't run. The elderly neighbor, who hesitated before mentioning the car door. A car meant movement. Movement meant records. One rainy evening, long after the case had stopped appearing in meetings, Hale reopened an old note buried in the file. Transportation Authority footage, corrupted 11:45-12:15. He stared at it longer than he meant to. Most detectives would have shrugged. Systems fail, files corrupt. That was bureaucracy. But Hale had learned something over the years. When footage went missing at exactly the wrong time, it was usually because no one tried hard enough to retrieve it. He logged into the city's archived systems, credentials barely still active. The interface was ancient, folders nested inside folders like a digital junk drawer. After an hour of clicking through dead ends, he found it. A flagged directory. Unrecovered data. Scheduled for deletion. One file sat inside. No thumbnail. No preview. Just a timestamp. The 3rd of November 2019, 23:45, 0:15. Hale's pulse quickened. He submitted a recovery request, fully expecting it to be denied. Instead, a response came back the next morning. System migration complete. Some corrupted files auto-repaired. The file was now playable. Hale waited until night to open it. He didn't know why, maybe instinct, maybe superstition. He shut his office door, dimmed the lights, and plugged in his headphones. The screen flickered. Grainy dashcam footage filled the monitor. The view was angled slightly downward, showing a quiet residential street through a windshield speckled with dust. A digital clock glowed in the corner. 11:51 p.m. The vehicle was stationary. No way, Hale whispered. A taxi. Not a rideshare, not a private car. An old-style city cab, the kind rarely used anymore. The interior camera switched views, showing the back seat empty, worn vinyl, a faint smear on the window like a handprint wiped away. The car idled. Seconds ticked by. Then, from the right side of the frame, someone stepped into view. A boy in a hoodie. Ethan. Hale's breath caught in his throat. Ethan hesitated at the open rear door, body angled away, as if unsure. His face was visible for just a second, confused, not panicked. He leaned in slightly. The audio crackled. "Aren't you supposed to?" The sentence never finished. The video glitched just a blink, then stabilized. The back seat was empty. Hale leaned closer to the screen, heart pounding. Then, slowly, deliberately, the rear door swung shut. From the inside, the cab pulled away moments later, disappearing down Oak Ridge Lane like it had never been there at all. Hale ripped the headphones off, standing so fast his chair skidded backward. "This wasn't a runaway," he said aloud to the empty room. "This was a pickup. And for the first time in 2 years, Ethan Mercer wasn't just missing. He was taken. And whoever did it had been hiding in plain sight." The room felt smaller the longer Detective Hale stared at the frozen frame. Ethan's face, half lit, half lost in shadow, hovered on the screen, caught in the exact moment before everything went wrong. Hale rewound the footage again. And again. Slower this time, frame by frame. The taxi sat too still. Most drivers fidgeted, checked mirrors, adjusted radios. This one didn't move at all. The steering wheel stayed perfectly centered, the engines idle steady and low, like it had been waiting long before Ethan ever stepped into view. Hale turned up the volume. Static hissed, then Ethan's voice closer than Hale expected. Clearer. "Aren't you supposed to?" The sentence died in his throat. There was no reply, no greeting, no confirmation of a destination. The driver never turned around. The video glitched for less than a second, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. When the image returned, the back seat was empty. No movement, no struggle, no sign Ethan had ever been there at all. Hale scrubbed forward. The rear door moved slowly, smoothly, swinging inward. Closing. From inside the cab. Hale felt a chill crawl up his spine. He paused the frame just before the latch clicked shut. The reflection in the rearview mirror caught his eye. The driver's face was barely visible, features distorted by glass and darkness, but something about it felt wrong. The mouth curved upward, not in warmth, not even amusement. Recognition. Hale sat back, breathing shallow. "That's impossible," he whispered. He pulled the metadata. The cab wasn't logged with any rideshare app. No dispatch record. No plate visible on the exterior cam. The vehicle ID was blank, as if the system hadn't known how to categorize it. The next morning, Hale took the footage straight to his captain. "This changes everything," Hale said, hands tight around his phone. "We have proof Ethan entered a vehicle." The captain watched in silence, his expression hardening with every second. When the clip ended, he exhaled slowly. Jesus. They ran it through every database available. City taxis, private contractors, defunct companies, nothing matched. The cab didn't exist. The driver, no record. Facial recognition failed. The system couldn't lock onto any defining markers, as if the face refused to resolve. "It's like trying to identify a reflection in moving water," a tech muttered. They tracked down former taxi routes from that year. Drivers were interviewed, shown still frames. Most shook their heads. "That's not one of ours," a retired dispatcher said. "That model was phased out years earlier." "But someone was driving it," Hale pressed. The dispatcher frowned. "Then someone shouldn't have been." The deeper Hale dug, the worse it became. The taxi company name faintly visible on the door belonged to a business that had dissolved nearly a decade before Ethan vanished. Its records were incomplete, vehicles sold off, scrapped, or unaccounted for. One VIN number appeared twice, once in a sale log, once in a theft report. Neither listed a recovery. Following that trail led Hale to a salvage yard on the outskirts of the city, a rusted sprawl of metal and weeds where unwanted cars went to disappear. The owner squinted at the image Hale showed him. "Yeah," he said slowly, "I remember that one." Hale's pulse jumped. "You do?" "Came in a few years back. No plates. No paperwork. Just dropped off." "By who?" The owner shrugged. "Didn't see anyone. It was just there one morning." They found the cab half buried behind a stack of crushed sedans. Its paint was faded, the interior stripped, seats torn out, dash smashed. Clean. Too clean. Forensics went over every inch. Dust, fibers, old stains, but nothing tied directly to Ethan. Except one thing. On the inside of the rear door, pressed into the metal beneath the handle, was a partial fingerprint. Not Ethan's. Not the driver's. Not in any database. An analyst stared at the scan, uneasy. "This print. It's distorted. Pressure pattern doesn't match a normal grip." Hale felt his stomach sink. "What does it match?" She hesitated. "Someone pulling the door shut from inside using leverage, not fingers. As if they hadn't been sitting. As if they hadn't needed to." When the Mercers were shown the footage, they watched only once. Ethan's mother covered her mouth when he appeared on screen. His father stood rigid, hands clenched at his sides. They didn't make it to the door closing. "Turn it off," his mother said, her voice breaking. "Please." The case was reopened. Officially this time. But proof didn't bring answers, just deeper questions. Because whatever picked Ethan up that night wasn't improvising. It had waited. And the camera wasn't supposed to catch it. Which raised the most terrifying question of all. How many times had it already happened without anyone ever seeing it? The truth didn't arrive with closure. It arrived like a fog, thick, suffocating, and impossible to grasp. When the case reopened, headlines resurfaced, sharper this time. New footage reveals teen entered unknown taxi. Reporters camped outside the Mercer home again, their questions softer now, but heavier. The family declined interviews. They had learned what attention took without ever giving anything back. Inside the department, the footage became a dividing line. Some investigators believed it pointed toward organized trafficking, an illegal cab, a clean extraction, no struggle. Others weren't convinced. Too many things didn't fit. No financial trail. No communications, no sightings afterward, not even rumors. And then there was the driver. Detective Hale couldn't shake the mirror reflection. He watched it alone one night, isolating the frame where the face almost appeared human. Almost. The tech team tried enhancing it again, running newer software, deeper scans. The result was the same every time, features blurring at the edges, proportions subtly wrong, like the image resisted being understood. It's not resolution, one analyst admitted quietly. It's like the system doesn't know what it's looking at. The fingerprint from the taxi door was sent to federal databases. Then international ones. No match. A biomechanical consultant reviewed the pressure pattern and raised an eyebrow. This wasn't a hand closing a door the way people do, she said. There's too much uniform force, too efficient. Hale didn't like the word. Efficient. The salvage yard owner was re-interviewed, pressed harder this time. "You're sure no one dropped it off?" Hale asked. The man shifted uncomfortably. "I said what I know. It wasn't there when I closed up. It was there when I opened. Like it just arrived." Security cameras from nearby businesses were pulled. One showed the edge of the yard late at night. At 3:12 a.m., a shape appeared at the gate, not driving in, just there. The feed glitched. The next frame showed the taxi parked inside. No entry. No exit. When Hale brought this to his captain, the room went quiet. "This doesn't go in the report," the captain said finally. "What?" Hale snapped. "It's evidence. It's an anomaly," the captain corrected. "And anomalies don't hold up in court. Neither did ghosts. Or monsters. Or things that didn't fit neatly into boxes labeled suspect and motive." The case stalled again, not officially but practically. Leads dried up, resources shifted. The footage remained real, undeniable, and useless. For the Mercers, time moved differently now. Ethan's room stayed untouched. His mother still set an extra plate at dinner out of habit, then quietly put it away. His father walked Oak Ridge Lane some nights, stopping at the curb where the dog had sat down. "I just want to know," he said once to Hale, "even if it's bad. I just want to know." Hale didn't have an answer. Years later, when the story faded again, the taxi footage would circulate online, in fragments slowed, cropped, overanalyzed, comment sections filled with theories, hoaxes, debunkings. But no one could explain one final detail. In the full, unedited video, something Hale noticed long after the case went cold again, there was a sound beneath the static, almost buried. A second voice. Low. Calm. Not coming from the driver's seat, but from the back. Speaking before Ethan ever stepped inside. As if it already knew he was there. The official conclusion would read, "Unsolved. No suspects, no remains, no recovery." But for Hale, the answer was painfully clear. Ethan Mercer didn't vanish into darkness. He was invited into it, and somewhere, on some quiet street, under some waiting streetlight, the door was still opening.